My friends, I have Jim Bradley visiting the shop, and he's from Springfield, Missouri. He brought me a really nice guitar, and my only regret is I didn't play it for you before I started taking it apart. I've already got the strings off of it. It really sounds great. It's a nice guitar. It's got a little bit of an intonation issue with the B, but Jim must be part dog, because I think only a dog could hear this. but Jim could hear it, and he's right. I mean, it definitely has a little bit of an issue with a B, but it's a minor issue in my opinion, at least in terms of the norm that I see. Usually they're off by 15 or 20 cents when people hear it. This is off by about 6 or 7 cents, and he can hear it, no problem. You have a very good ear.
Thank you.
Tell them a little bit about this guitar then.
This is an Alvarez Yairi. It's not your usual Chinese-made Alvarez. It's made at a small private luthier shop in Kanagifu, Japan. The man who started the luthier shop shortly after World War II was named Kazuo Yairi, and he later formed a distribution plan with Alvarez in the States. And the deal was he would do a lot of innovative guitar design for Alvarez, and in return they would market a small number of these upper end Alvarez Yairis in the United States. So for example, Alvarez has this same model made in China at about, literally, I think about a third of the price.
I got you.
But they follow his specifications, but of course the craftsmanship and the materials are somewhat inferior.
Well, I can tell you firsthand, this is a nice guitar. It's really nice, and it's got a great sound. It's just about as good as it gets. And so what we're going to do is make a deer antler saddle. It came with a tusk saddle, and the tusk, I know there's a lot of hype out there about tusk, but it's basically plastic. I mean, there's really nothing more to it than that. It's just a hard plastic, similar to micarta or something like that. And the problem that I see with it is it's a little soft, and the strings are cutting into the tusk quite a bit, way more than I would want. And like he said, when you put the strings on it and those little the way it cuts into the plastic here, the strings don't necessarily line up perfectly, and he won't have that problem, I don't think, with bone. The bone, it'll just find its natural straightness there and line straight up. So anyway, that's what we're doing. We're making a antler saddle, so when I get that made and get it strung up, we'll play it for you. The fit on the original tusk saddle, you can see here, it's not a bad fit, it's not horrible, but you can see some wiggle there, I think. And that's not a good thing, because as your strings pull forward, the bridge always pulls this way. So you're under a tension this direction, where it should just be straight down. And this saddle that I just made, if you look here, it has to be pressed into place, but not an excessive amount of force. It's in place. There is absolutely zero wiggle in that. There's none at all. If I could grab a hold of it, and I can't. In my younger days, I could have done that. I could pick up the whole guitar with it. But yet, it's not that strong in terms of pulling it out of there. See, it comes out fairly easy. So it's just an absolute perfect fit, and that's what you want on your saddles. Okay, so now we're going to look at this B string and intonate it a little bit. Since his B string was sharp, that means we're going to want to pull it back a little bit. So I'm going to mark on both sides of this B string, just kind of get a symmetrical mark there so that I can pull the B string back about half the width of the saddle there. And that ought to be enough to fix his intonation issues on his B string. Well, my friends, we've got this guitar all set up with the antler saddle, you can see there, and I did intonate the B string. Whenever I tested it, the B string was just a little bit sharp all the way, but especially sharp at the first 2 frets. And I thought, that just doesn't make sense. Why is it sharp at the first 2 frets? And of course, he's the one that pointed it out. I didn't necessarily even look for that, but he says it's really sharp at the first couple of frets, you know. So sure enough, I start checking it, and it is, you know. So we went ahead and put the new saddle on it and set it up as best we could. It's still sharp at those first 2 frets. And really all the slots, all the string slots showed that the strings were riding in the air just a little bit. They weren't really hitting the bottom of the slot. And I think that may have been that this nut was set up for very light strings, and he was using a little bit heavier string, and I think that's part of the problem. And sure enough, once we filed the nut out, I think that cleared up a lot of the issues. And then I checked the action here at the first fret on that B string, and sure enough, it was a little bit high. So we lowered it down a little bit more, and now I'll be truthful and tell you that it shows just a fuzz high now when you note it, compared to about 4 cents high. So now it's showing about 1 cent high. So that's, to me, you can't hear that. You know, when you get down to 1 cent, you're pretty good. Got a nice sound. Boy, it's a good sounding guitar. My friends, now that we've got the guitar all set up, I thought I'd just have Jim play a little bit on it for you, and he can also tell you what he thinks about what we've discovered here. Have it up. Very good.
Oh, look, I never played for the camera.
It's always tough when you're playing for a camera. So what do you think about it so far?
I think it sounds, well, in the first place, I think the basic sound of the guitar is just improved immensely by this bridge as opposed to that plastic thing that was in there before.
Right.
And I'm really happy that now I can play these little three-note chords, and they sound like chords instead of hearing that discordant note before.
Right.
It was caused by the sharpness on this B string.
Sure.
So I'm very, very happy. Very, very happy.
Very good. Very good.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I hope you got something out of that. I could use one of those cheap lines and say, just really watch your nuts. But anyway, it was just a little bit tight right there. And, that was the first problem. So we opened it up a little bit. I'll just tell you, as a general rule of thumb, you're way better off having your strings loose in the slot than you are overly tight. You will get issues if they're overly tight. You won't have issues too much if you keep them a little bit loose. And the only way you can still have issues when they're loose is if the angle isn't right. And we've got the angle right now, and we've got these strings going to the bottom of the slot, and everything's good. Life is good again. This guitar should be in really good shape. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for watching.